good. I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording process is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Kaler.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Streisand.
Here.
Tanya's.
Here.
Oregon.
Yes.
Wilkin. Here.
All right, the first 5 items this evening make up the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Singleton. Streisand.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please swear the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya's, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Oregon 7-0.
All right, our first administrative item this evening is the Seward Foundation application, and this is the Seward Arts Council for their summer music series. Did you want to start, Greg?
Turn it over to Jean.
Either one of you,
Yeah.
Can we
welcome.
both go?
Yeah.
Either one.
Sounds
Just
good.
state
make
your
sure you-
name and your address
Yes.
for the records. Thank you.
I'm Allison Cook, 2227 North Columbia Avenue, and I'm with the Arts Council.
Jeannie Weimer, 1693 224th, Seward, and I'm with the Seward Arts Council.
Yes, so we are here with the application for the Seward Foundation. I'm back again for this project. So Jeannie turned in our application. We have done some fundraising for this project, but we are looking for additional funding as well. So the 5th Street Summer Music Series is going to be every second Saturday, June through September at the band shell. And this came about for a variety of reasons. And our main goal this year for the Arts Council is the art of music. So we thought what better way than to have summer music series at the band shell. We think it's an amazing resource, and we want to provide an event that kind of combines all the different arts. So, you know, whether we have artists out there painting, have the music, you know, have a variety of different businesses included. So we think it'll be a great community event to really draw people to downtown and to, you know, create community. So, yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? If not, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya's, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Oregon 8-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2, consideration of a request from the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission on behalf of H&H Recreation Incorporated Spare Time to allow for an addition to the existing liquor license to include renovated outdoor area. Go ahead. Scott.
Okay. As you may have noticed, Spare Time is in the midst of renovating their outdoor area. Based on the fact that their outdoor area will expand to include more area, they have to amend their liquor license. So what is in front of you, per the request of the state, we just need to have council approval to amend their liquor license to include all their outdoor area. So this is what this is. If it's approved, I'll forward it on to the state and they'll do what they do, and that should be it.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya's, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Oregon 8-0.
All Alright, item number 3, consideration of resolution to adjust Burnside fees to possess a key effective immediately for new users and January 1, 2024 for current holders. Greg?
Yes, pursuant to the request by Councilmember Singleton, we draft up a resolution. It denotes that the business fee will now be moved to $500. I don't know that let's see. The second page has the adjustment of fees. We went from 20 to 100 for businesses on the daily use and 40 to 100 on the non-resident businesses. There's some more adjustments. I think the language that you saw adjusted in the first sentence just more aligns us with what's in the language of our permit. And then outlines that the overseeing department is the Department of Environment and Energy, not the Department of Environmental Quality anymore, or Control.
I believe those amounts are simply, they're not based on any cost to us.
Nope, that was
So,
what we said we would throw
right.
in.
But I just want to clarify, so if you wanted to adjust any of those, you sure can. I mean, it's just a battle over arbitrary numbers. Yes.
Do I need to abstain since we're a key holder? Hughes Brothers it?
I'm
I
not
could go ahead and
particularly concerned, cause we're offering it the same to everybody.
Yeah,
So-
and it's not a monetary like benefit, like you're not gonna make more money personally off of this.
You're not financially benefited.
Right,
No.
so you should be, okay, unless you personally
Unless
want
it's
to.
coming right out of my check.
Is, no, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what's your hard no?
No,
I think we're okay,
Just a
right,
little
Kelly?
paycheck.
Yeah, we're good.
I think it's a great improvement, so I'll introduce the resolution.
Alright, the resolution has been introduced and designated as resolution number 2023-3. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
Alright, item number 4, consideration of a resolution directing the conveyance of real property legally described as Lot 1, Summit Edition, City of Seward, Seward County, Nebraska, to Summit Contracting Incorporated. Greg?
Yeah, this was a request for a triangle of land that's just east or west of Tenneco. So pulling up my packet here as we brought this one online. It's a small triangular parcel that we had to plat out at one point a few weeks or a month or so back because it was somehow tied to the greater, that triangle just kept going across the roadway. We must have acquired it potentially in some flood property back in the day. Summit Contracting is building a facility out there, and so the city was contacted by them and negotiated terms through Kelly, and so this one, due to the nature of the cost of how much we're selling the property for, which has essentially no use to us, it's $1,000. We don't even have to do the remonstrance period, correct, Kelly? That's why we're approving a resolution tonight for this rather than an ordinance and the remonstrance period and everything else that goes with it.
There will be just a couple minor text edits on the purchase agreement, updating the dates. We got a March date here still, and closing I anticipate will probably be in less than 30 days, but I've got a April 14th closing date here, so whenever title is ready, we'll close.
Any questions or comments from the council? Assuming you're okay with those edits. Would anyone like to introduce the resolution?
I'll introduce a resolution.
The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2023-4. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
Alright, item 5, items related to the construction of the South Water Tower. We have our engineer, Mike Ownby, welcome. We have 2 items. We have A, which is consideration of the construction contract with General Excavating for utilities site work and authorization for mayor to sign all documents. And item B is amendment number 3 to the professional services agreement for engineering services with Olson Incorporated.
Thank you, and good evening. So, item A, we have the contract, we have the water tower split into 3 different contracts. This is the first contract, that is at the point of issuing a notice to proceed and for signature of the mayor. This is for the site and utilities work, so that include out at the intersection of Jackson 8th Street, some rebuilding of storm sewer, some additional storm sewer, reconstruction of the buried water main, a new 10-inch water main that'll be bored that'll serve the new water tower. Then it also includes some site work once the tower is complete, pavement and new curbing and things like that on the actual site itself. So the work will probably be done in 2 major phases. The first phase should start relatively early, they do have time, and so the street-related work and the buried utilities should be completed in the next 2 to 3 months. And so this contract includes all phases. Sum total that we approved for award the last meeting, $696,785. Our engineer has reviewed the contract, all related paperwork, the performance bond, the payment bond, and the paperwork for the state revolving fund program. So with that, I recommend approval for the mayor to sign this contract. Should I go into the second
that's fine.
item? The next item is related. This is an amendment to the contract for design services from Olson. They were the design engineer of the water tower. This is to provide engineering-related services during construction. It's estimated to be a 15-month period of time. There is a breakdown towards the back end, about $34,000 in estimated expenses, a little under $198,000 in labor. That's 193 hours they estimate. This is a time and materials contract not to exceed. The amount is $232,000 for this amendment. So this will cover that period of time. There will be a couple periods of very heavy construction, some of it very specialized, examining the strength of the concrete that's poured for the foundation, examining the materials used in construction, the welds used to weld the portions of the tank together, the coating itself, making sure all these things follow the specifications. So this particular amendment to the contract includes all 3 water treatment contracts. Utilities and site work I just described, construction of the tower itself, as well as the demolition of the existing tank. On a percentage basis, 5.8% of the $4 million construction cost for those 3 contracts. That's a good rule of thumb, an acceptable level of services. Works out to be about 103 hours a month. So anyway, it's a substantial period of work involved during construction of the tank. So we do expect that there will be some periods where activity is very heavy, and we'll certainly want the expertise that's provided in this contract. So with that, I recommend to award this amendment.
Thanks, Mike. Is there any questions or comments from the council? I think just require simple motions, I believe. Right, Greg? I believe so. These just require motions, yeah. So if you have any questions or comments, otherwise I entertain a motion.
For A and B or just A?
It's A, we'll start with A.
I'll
Yep.
approve A. Motion for A.
We have a motion to approve A, we have a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tines, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
And for item 5B,
I'll make a motion to approve 5.
Second.
the motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tines, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
All right, thank you, Mike. Item 6, items related to city personnel. We have item A is updated the finance director / treasurer job description, and then item B is consideration of an ordinance to amend the electric lineman, journeyman lineman, electric line crew chief, electric superintendent pay lines. So I guess we'll start with you, Derek.
Yeah. So, as most of you are heard by now, our finance director, Nick Wolf, is leaving unfortunately. So his last day with the city will be on May 15th. Sad to see him go, he's done a really good job, really good guy to work with, but we have to go out and find the next Nick Wolf. That's gonna advance everything and take us to an even better place. With that being said, as we do with most department head departures, we looked at the job description and made sure it all matched up with what he's doing currently. He had some suggestions. And you see in the old red line version that it's a lot more pages and a lot more convoluted, and there was a lot of duplication. So through the effort of going with our new template and working with Nick and with Greg, went through and made it a little bit more streamlined and hopefully reflecting the duties that the incoming finance director, treasurer will be doing. Essential job functions, I basically saw it as three things that goes into that job. Is looking after the accounting investment system, doing payroll, utilities billing, and accounts payables and receivables, and also the budget preparation and annual audit. So that's how those tasks are kind of split up into those kind of areas. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Yeah, on item A, are there any questions or comments from the council?
Do you want a motion to approve?
We will.
Do you wanna do them together, or do you
No,
wanna?
the second one's an ordinance.
Okay.
So, yeah, so this one's just a motion when you're ready. But we'll answer any questions or hear any comments you may have first. Or entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilken, Taylor, Tanya, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
And item B, this will require an ordinance to change. Greg, would you want to take this?
Yeah, there you go, Councilman Miller. Those, and then everything else
Do you have?
that way.
Do you want this sent out too?
Yeah, pass on out as well. All right, you're getting two documents handed around, but first we'll start with kind of what precipitated this. If you remember back in last August when we started doing budget and we did comparability and we discussed our situation with police officers, sergeants, captains, all that situation, and the comparable wages that we were seeing in the greater area, both in Seward County and then competing with Lancaster County Sheriff's Office and LPD. I warned you during the budget approval and that comparability process that the other one we would need to take a look at over the next year would be linemen. I identify that linemen tend to be the ones that I see, just like police officers, where they're not leaving because of culture, they're not leaving because of, they're like, lineman work is not good for me, I don't want to do this anymore, I need to move into some other career or opportunity. The reason we lose them is because of the competitive market that we're in. We were recently notified by one of our employees in the electric department that they'll be moving on to go work for LES for significantly more wages for the exact same level of education and training that they have now. And we think that is gonna continue to be a problem. And so we, not only due to the fact we knew we were gonna go out and have to potentially recruit a new lineman in, but we may need to recruit multiple because LES is hiring numerous linemen right now. And we'll look to do so again this fall potentially. And looking at that, we have a smaller crew, predominantly 6 positions that go out on a day-to-day basis, are on call and provide all the work that they do for the utility system. And so when Larry contacted me and we said we would kind of expedite comparability, and Mindy went and did that work, and you'll see it handed out to you there. We also noted that we would, and we've done this one in the past, but this one specifically, we would take a look at our local competitors, which includes Norris, right here in Seward County, LES, just down the road in Lincoln, and then NPPD surrounding the greater area outside of some of those interconnections. And so also working within the what we call the retail market. So for instance, if they're gonna repair Milford is NPPD retail, and so they would come and repair utility lines and things like that, so that was NPPD. So we've looked at these before in the past. If you were with us or attended those budget meetings when we looked at comparability, you might be familiar with the form I laid out here. what we have here is the comparable towns, if we, on the first page, if you're looking at this sheet, where we look at Crete, York, Wahoo, Schuyler, Gretna, Beatrice, Fairbury, Plattsmouth, Blair, Nebraska City, Aurora, and Wayne. These are the comparable towns that we look at for most positions, and you'll note.
One second, I just sort of want to understand, so, this array is based on statutory requirements of what cities are we, that we can compare it to. So you might say, well, why isn't someone else, obviously, well, they may not meet that qualification. And so what, among comparability, we look at this as our array, and this is what the statutory requirement would be. And we try to fall within like 98 to 102% of what that array shows. Our other communities in that array are paying for each position. And so there's really two basic metrics. You have the one that the array shows as like an average, for example, and then you have what I would call anecdotal, which is even though they're not in our array, if we are losing employees to an entity like LES, then I think anecdotally you should be aware of what that number looks like. Not that it factors into the array and the comparable analysis, but it doesn't make any sense if we're dealing with an array that shows, that we're actually pretty maybe, mid or high on the array, when the reality is we're not losing people to communities in the array, we're losing them to other entities. You should be aware of what that number looks like, just so you have proper context when we move forward on this, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and so you can see there, we try to hit 98 to 102% of the midpoint on the first page. A lot of these communities we compare to don't even have an electric utility. That's why you probably see the NA listed. Currently, we sit at the 98th percentile. Again, we compare a combination of wages, retirement, and healthcare coverage by the city. And so I'm not going to go into all the formula. I think I explained it during the budget. If you're not familiar with it, check in with me later. But essentially, correct. We want to hit between the 98th and the 102nd percentile. And we're sitting right on the top end, right at both ends actually, right at the 98th percentile. And so just to be what would be comparable, you would slide in above 98%. We usually try to hit 100%. And so we would look at increasing wages, $1 on the bottom and $1 on the top, and that would slide us right in the middle. But again, we're not losing linemen to any of these entities. So if you look at the second page, you'll see the significant number difference in Norris, NPBD, and LES, especially on the top end. We have all their information. Norris is significant in regards to their retirement matches, as is LES. We sit at 6%. One of those is 14%. The other one is 10%. Some of them have significant contributions to healthcare as well, NPPD especially. And so we run the same calculations and create the 98 to 102 percentile. And there to be more in the running, we're looking at approximately $4 off on both the bottom and the top for the city of Seward. We sat down and had a discussion with some of the employees, or at least one of the employees that's gone to LES. We've talked to the other ones that have left before that we've lost to LES. And there are numerous items, but again, in this market, one of the first things they're looking at is wages and how fast they move through the wage scale. Predominantly, linemen take what's called a merchant's course or apprentice test, and a lot of these programs now, you are at the top once you complete that requirement. And so at LES, for instance, is approximately a 4-month process from coming in as an apprentice. Apprentice tends to be somebody that's gone to an associate's program, maybe at Northeast Community College or Metro. It's a 2-year program, and then they come in as an apprentice, they begin their work, and within 4 years, they will max out if they complete all the testing requirements and complete the apprentice program within LES. So in LES, after 4 years, you can move up to the max, which they have at $50 an hour. And so that is really hard to compete with 20 miles away. And so we've had discussions with the mayor, Derek, myself, in regards to recruitment and retention, and also with Larry. Not only do we want to recruit good
hardworking, skilled linemen, we also want to retain. For those that stay here and commit to the city of Seward, we want to ensure that we are being fair and competitive in the market, because they just as easily could go anywhere else, especially just down the road, live in Seward and enjoy all the benefits, but head just 15 minutes, 20 minutes away. Seward is easily within LES's call time. They have numerous other benefits, and we'll continue to analyze those, but we feel, and in our discussions with the mayor, that we need to make a strong approach to continue to retain and also recruit. We think if we stay at the line we're at right now, we had an opening, I believe, 6 months ago, approximately. We had 2 applicants. One, I would say, leveraged the possibility of the job to get better terms at their current job, and that's fine. They went through the whole process, did all the interviewing and everything else. And the other one we did hire, that one that we hired is a potential to go away now, very easily, and move to incredibly higher wages. I'll say the one that's leaving us right now is going to get $14 an hour more, the one that's guaranteed to leave. So that's the current situation that we are in the labor market.
And the risk that we run if we don't become somewhat proactive and even aggressive with this is you become a farm team, and basically you'll end up getting, and not just, I'm not talking about specifically this department, but in general, if we lag behind, we'll bring in, like we saw with police officers, where we're going to bring in someone, we're going to pay and put in the effort to get them certified or get them trained and meet those requirements, and then they're going to get poached by somebody else because they can pay more, or it's a better situation that we can't maybe offer or compete with. And so that's why we were going to bring this up later during our normal budget process, but we're worried. The concern is if we don't do anything right now and we start advertising for these positions, are we just wasting time because we're not going to get the number or the quality of applicant that we would be hoping for. So at least this gives us a puncher's chance of being able to hopefully not only recruit, but then be able to retain those employees moving forward. So that's why this is sort of an anomaly, and why we're taking this one up separate than what we would through our normal budget process. Is that fair?
Yep. I'd also note that the reason that you have the ordinance with the increase to both the lineman, the crew chief, and the superintendent is because we will have major overlap where linemen will be making more than the people that supervise them if we don't slide wages equally. You were given a form here that has basically a dollar for dollar what Nick calculated each dollar increase across the board for everybody would equate to. You have 7 full-time employees over there that are in that category. You calculate the FICA, the 6% pension, and then we have a certain amount allocated for overtime for some of those employees. Also their FICA, we don't calculate the retirement into that number, and it gives you a dollar for dollar budget hit for each dollar we increase this and consider. And so the one you have proposed in front of you is $5 increase across the board, but you can see in the competitive market we're still going to be behind pretty significantly. The one I'd also point out, we thought it was an anomaly, so we had to call, but Skylar at $49.15, that is not an anomaly. Last year they were at $39.15, and in 1 year they increased it $10 an hour because it was so hard to retain and recruit linemen. And so this level of skilled labor is in hot demand, especially in southeast Nebraska. There's another pool that's kind of pulling all this in, that's OPPD up in Omaha. And so that's also having a ripple effect to us. They're pulling LES linemen out from Lincoln who are going and working up in Omaha because they can and respond in time. And so that's what's kind of pulling all of this to the east.
And that's the same dynamic you saw with police, where OPD was not stealing is the right word. They were, they were recruiting officers out of Lincoln. So then Lincoln increased their hourly to be the highest in the state to stop that. But then they started taking from other communities. communities as well. So it's definitely a transfer portal situation where we just have to be proactive and try to be aggressive when we can, because if you increasing it but constantly trailing doesn't really gain you anything. I mean, it helps your current employees, but you're never really gonna get that benefit of actually, getting closer or even surpassing the ones around you. Then all of a sudden, now you're at that same level or higher. Then you benefit from that. Whereas if you're falling, even if you're gaining but you're not catching or getting close, you don't really see that same the same benefit that we're hoping with recruitment and retention.
I was also noting with Norris is that if you look at Norris, they are a direct competitor with linemen here in town. That live here in town, that work in the Seward County area, and right now we're approximately $5 behind them, or $4.50 and some change. And so our hope is to, build up and be competitive, because they're the direct people we can reach out to and try to contact. But that's why we also felt like 5 is a nice starting point, because it gives us a built-in, pool and market to potentially go out and try to, as Derek's not afraid to kind of go out and make contacts with and try to see if we can get people. That's how we found Brandon and got him sorted away from the city of Crete. And so we'll continue to be aggressive, not only with these positions, but with the finance director and everywhere else. But we do have to be competitive in the market if you want to keep these. The last one I'll add is just the sheer amount of work and effort that it puts upon our senior linemen there that have been with us for an incredibly long time, to every 3 to 4 years be charging up these guys as they keep coming through it. And that's what we've kind of consistently seen over 7 years. And again, I do the exit interviews. They're not leaving because Larry's mean to them. They're not leaving because, the cultural issues. They're leaving because they're smart and savvy kids. They know that their work and training and time is worth money. And so they're trying to compete with that. They have families to bring up and things like that. And so that's why we've kind of started where we have, and we even say that's a starting point. But we wanted to give you had to have some numbers, so we felt like 5 was an appropriate starting point for the discussion.
Larry, did you want to add anything to this discussion?
If we go with $5, 3 of my guys would be gone. It's starting point, yeah, but that's not enough to keep them.
So ultimately, it's up to the council. If you want to do more than that, we needed a placeholder, so we put what would put it competitive with Norris, but obviously it's not going to be as much as this. You're talking about LES, right? Yeah, so it's obviously not going to be on par with LES. That's a pretty significant commitment. So, any questions or comments from the council? Yes, Rick.
The $5, does that bring us up to 100% of the midpoint, or just at the above the midpoint?
Well, it depends on which one you're asking about.
That's right.
That's the first one.
The entire array, if you look at the array on your sheet.
Second page of the first
page.
First page. If you do 5, that puts you in second place, and it takes you way above the midpoint
Okay.
for just that array.
Is it within the 102%?
No,
It's
over.
still over. Okay. Got it. Thank you for that.
Which is fine. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the range that we try to get into that we can justify.
Right.
But
But again, another one in the array is Skylar,
That's
and on the
right.
top end, they'll be at 66, 65, and we'll be at 59.
Okay.
And so they're in our array, and they are $7 higher than even with the $5.
Okay, I have another question. And that means we're not limited to the 102% anyway. I mean,
No.
that's just the guideline is
Yes,
98
if somebody forced your hand, if you went through the whole CIR process, and I know you're probably familiar with some of the educational stuff and things that you've done. If you were forced to, and you went through the process, you had a competitive or bargaining agreement made,
Right.
this is the methodology they would start forcing you to use, and there's other methodologies similar to this for all other benefits as well.
Yeah.
And so this is just the wage element. And it's not perfect. I will say this is the one we utilized in the 7 years I've been here, but it is not CIR perfect.
Right.
There's even more nuance to it that makes it even harder to do in a short order. We're able to do this year in, year out because we do it this way. The one that's the anomaly is the healthcare quantification. We just use the highest one any employer is willing to pay. Then usually that tends to be PPO family coverage.
So this is just more of a guideline that we use as a tool to try and figure out and justify where we land. And it's a good marker too, because if all of a sudden you realize you're way below other communities in your array, or the not what I mentioned, like the anecdotal competition, you probably wouldn't know that, you know, and especially if you start losing employees to those particular entities or municipalities, and so it's a good guide for that purpose. Carl?
And I'd say it's basically our own internal model that we've come up with over the past years, especially with Chris Schmidt heading it up when, gosh, that was 3-4 years ago when we started doing this, to where it's not the CIR model by any means, but you're within 99% of it. So there's not much change that's going to be between this. We just have control of this, and like Greg said, it's readily available to us as we can.
Well, it's a lot easier to calculate.
Right.
So
Yeah.
rather than having to pay someone to produce this, or, you know, commit even more resources to create this, it's a good tool for us.
So it's a framework.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it appears that for a while, this framework worked well for the city of Seward, especially in a department like electrical, and maybe now it's time to expand beyond that model?
Well, the framework, I think the framework in the array is still workable.
Right.
It's just that we need to be cognizant that there are going to be entities, like in this case, LES,
Right.
or it could be laminated wood systems, or it could be any other entity that may be hiring. So it would be essentially a competitor for employees, but they don't fall within this array because they're not a municipality that meets that statutory requirement of criteria, the statutory criteria. So I wouldn't say we just throw out, I
No, I know.
think this is a good framework for what our purpose is. It accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't protect us from competitors that aren't in the array. And that's kind of, I think the county ran into a similar issue as well, is that if they're losing it, you know, they're losing employees to another entity that's not in their array. It doesn't make sense to ignore
Right.
them, because that's really your issue. And I think that's why I assume some of these are high, because they find themselves in Omaha is, like he said before, Omaha's taken from Lincoln, and then Lincoln's taken from everyone around them. And when I say Lincoln, I include not just city of Lincoln, but specifically LES, and even the sheriff's office. Yes, John?
I agree with this. Anybody that's working in any industry knows what's going on. It's not just here, it's everywhere. Maintenance workers, it doesn't matter. Managers, supervisors, it don't matter. So the big concern is, I know, and I don't disagree with this at all, how long is it gonna be before the other entities, once we approve this, like wastewater, how long is it gonna be before they come here? Or any of the other entities, because those are specialty jobs as well.
No, and that's a great question. I mean, part of that is twofold. First, I would say is we're always reviewing the comparability, and we're always looking at how we are stacking up against the other communities in our array. So that's an ongoing analysis and evaluation. Other than that, if we are starting to lose employees, or we might lose employees in another department, for example, and that's not in our array, then we probably need to do like what we've done with not just electric department, but also police department, and factor that in to see if basically can you stop the bleeding, you know, and again, it's gonna be an arms race. I mean, everyone's gonna be dealing with this to some extent, especially when we're so close to Lincoln. They have the resources. There's gonna be more higher pay. There's gonna typically be more mobility within as far as promotions and other opportunities. So they're not going anywhere. So it's gonna be, you know, part of that struggle is figuring out where do we fit in that. I don't know that you necessarily wanna go head to head and match them on that rate, cause that gets pretty expensive for a community our size. But I also don't think you wanna fall too far behind. Otherwise, you're gonna continue to be a farm team for other communities that are will be willing to pay more, so.
I don't foresee this ending.
No, I don't think so either. I think the question, we put in $5 increase on, as a placeholder. But if you feel that you need to go up even more, Larry's talking about, even $10 an hour. That's up to the council. You have that chart that shows you what the fiscal impact would be, so you can see what that would mean moving forward every year as part of the budget. Yes, John?
So my next question will be for Larry. If we split the difference between $10, would that keep your guys?
I don't know for sure, I don't think so, they're looking at $14 an hour increase. But have talked to them,
And some of them, again, we wanna see where you land with this. Some of the other issues is also how they move through the numbers. Right now, they're moving at a minimum 9 years probably. Maybe more, upwards of 12 to 13 to max out within our array versus 4 years at LES or Norris or some of these other places. And so we've talked about, once we get this one settled out, because we can't bring all this in one night. We can't be like, hey, we're gonna bring every single term that these other places have. We need to do our research, what are the cost impacts, all that, but we know wages is number one out of the gate. Even to recruit, the first thing they're gonna look at when they look at the advertisement is what's the wage. Oh, well, LES is offering me $5 more bottom and top. Well, why would I even look at it? And
This isn't.
once we get this settled, then we're gonna start perusing through the other issues that we see to try and alleviate some of that pressure and make us competitive. I think Larry's got a comment.
John, if I lose 3 guys, that's gonna put a lot more work on the guys that stayed. And just, they got vacation they gotta use up, so you're short another guy sometimes, and just ain't got enough help, and we got so much work now, you can't hardly keep up, it's just so much construction going on.
This isn't the end of the conversation. Right now, this is triage, is what
It's
this is.
morale
Yeah.
in our department too, that's tough.
On top of that, are we gonna cause more people to be working overtime, which is gonna cost more money anyway?
At least in the short run, but then the problem is, and why we wanted to bring this now is, you can hire someone, they may not be certified, they may not have the experience, it may take a while, and we also don't know how long it's gonna take to hire someone. If we only have 1 or 2 people apply and neither one works out, that 1 month or 2 month process can turn into 3, 4, 5, which compounds to the issue Larry's talking about. Go ahead, Larry.
You get a student out of Northeast school that's graduating this spring, or 1 or 2 or whatever, it takes 4 years to get them just trained and to know all the stuff in the city that has to be done, how to do it, the switching, the safety issues. It just takes a long time. To go to that merchant course, that's a 4-year deal, just to get them up there.
And then the bigger concern is they get to the 4 years of experience, and then they get poached by somebody else, and that's my fear of becoming a farm team, and then you never really get to the experience level that you want across the board. You're constantly training and you're constantly bringing in new people, and that's not a good culture or a safe culture, to be honest with you.
And the next
Yeah,
question
John?
is, if we say we match LES, where we're currently at right here, where's the funds coming from? Cause it's not, it's not figured in on the budget currently.
Me and Nick looked at it. Larry the number that's not in there, because I noticed Carl got his book out.
Carl, that away.
The number that's missing is the actual end numbers for last close of fiscal year that we would have in the audit. The number I asked Nick to look up was where were our O&M expenses projected and our O&M expenses final. Because you don't want to go capital. If Larry's like, hey, I didn't put in a transformer or finish this project, we don't want to be like, well, we funded a project and now we're paying everybody.
Right.
We want to look, can Larry find it within his operating budget? I believe we were approximately 600,000 under on O&M at the end of the fiscal year. And so Larry is able, and I know he'll look, and he'll do the work to ensure we'll stay under budget, but I think he would much rather pay these wages and try to find savings in other places within a massive budget. It's our largest individual budget.
Another thing, if we gotta hire some contractors to come in and help out to get stuff done, first you can't find them, takes months to schedule a contractor here, and they charge phenomenal fees, so that's not an ideal situation either.
So, I mean, I gotta ask you, so if we do match LAS, which they're the top of the line here, is that gonna be satisfactory?
I think it would be.
I know you got two guys sitting next to you. What are their thoughts? I mean, I just like to know their thoughts.
These guys have been here forever.
I know.
About 100 years of experience with the city of Seward right here. I was just calculating it out, 99. It's hard to train people. We like to keep who we have. We were both late because my son plays soccer, he plays baseball. This is our town. And we're not, we don't want to go anywhere. And we'd like to keep people here. And it's tough when they want to leave all the time. We train so many people, and then even if you get to the point where you have to pay more money for contractors, and you got basically just a couple people running the city all the time, weekends. I mean, it don't give us a lot of opportunities to go anywhere or do anything because we're looking out for the city on call basis because somebody's always has to be around. And I don't know what Jared has to say, but
My thing is, in the last 7 years, we've hired those 3 positions, we hired 9 candidates. 2 of those had experience, the rest didn't. And it takes, I would say, about 4 years to be really comfortable. I can send those journeymen out, do a job without sending experienced guys. And training is, you just gotta watch your back if you're not. Safety is a huge deal. I mean, you can't just send out a new kid off the block and do it and know the system and switching and outages. And if you look at those arrays, those cities, look at our construction compared to those. Aurora, Wayne, they got an industrial site going on, building like crazy, developments, new roads, moving utilities. I mean, my guys work hard. And we have a great crew right now. And it took us 4 years to get there, So if we lose 3 guys, we're starting over again. Might keep 1, might keep 2. Those guys, for how long? It's just a revolving door.
Thanks for the feedback, guys. I like that.
That's helpful.
The other thing I would note is, and I'm not like picking on anyone's age or anything, one of the things that we've tried to refocus, especially in the last year, and bringing Derek online and conversations we've had, is succession planning. And how important that is, again, especially with the loss of Tim. We saw how quickly that can unfold and what you have to do for it. We see that we have different generations right now within the electric department, and our hope is that we've looked at and tried to identify 1 or 2 within that next younger generation that our hope is that the next, superintendent in line somewhere down the line is standing amongst those people. And so by not continuing to invest in them and try to keep them, because these are people that live in Seward. Who would you rather have running this, 20, 30 years from now than young people that were brought up in our system, know it like the back of their hand, are completely committed to their community? Well, you have to incentivize that and try to keep those people here. You can cross your fingers and hope they come back when the possibility opens up, but if you keep them invested and here, that's a huge part of it. And the mayor's always said, we really want to reward the people internally that stick with us. We want to give them these opportunities and show that we care about them, that we want to see them succeed and grow within the occupation that they've committed to us. We talk about this in water, wastewater, public properties, law enforcement. We talk about it across the board. It's part of our goal setting, our targets right now. We always look at, especially with the hires up, what's your succession plan? What are you looking at? Who are you identifying? How are you trying to grow them to get them ready for this? And so this is part of that too.
John, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just another question. question, since this is an ordinance, is this gonna have to come, and whatever we agree to tonight's gonna have to come back to us?
No, you can amend the ordinance.
Okay, we can,
Right,
okay.
and you can make a motion to amend this ordinance, and then it can be passed as amended, introduced as amended and voted on as amended, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
I just want to clarify that, okay.
yeah. Carl?
So I just wrote out a few things here. I think one, especially, like going through with this shows to me one of the many flaws with comparability. Because the fact that wastewater is a municipal service, we do compare with Creve and those, they have the same type of services, where we're dealing now with electric of NPPD, other actual competition that's not a municipality. So I think that's one of the big things that is a key in this discussion and shows the flaw in that comparability. So to your concern of, is this the tip of the iceberg of it kind of steamrolling into the other departments? I don't believe it should be, just for that fact that this is more comparable to competition outside of municipalities, to where we don't have wastewater for rural residents that NPPD could pull. Second one that really highlighted was that scalability of wages on bringing somebody new to where we're at with the experience. I think we do need to address that, especially after this point. But that's a separate issue at this time. And then, just looking at crunching raw numbers on this, I mean, it's a, what, 1.6 expense increase if we would go with the full $10 an hour. So, I mean, that's a hard one to take, but at the same time, looking at, like we said, the benefits of it, the nature of who we're actually competing with, and the experience that we do have and have built, and it goes towards retaining that. I think that's really the whole part of the question of, I don't believe $5 is enough, or even gonna be close at this point, given the circumstances that we're at.
Well, and you don't wanna get in a situation where you're just always behind.
Right.
You're just always trying to get people hired and to keep up.
Yeah, right, and that's the one other flaw in comparability, is you always have that perpetual increase of somebody jumps somebody, somebody jumps somebody, and to me, this is outside of comparability, just because we do have those other three factors in that are outside of our statutory array versus who we're actually competing against. So I think, because what are our numbers now in the department? How many people do we have? Larry, do you? Six.
Lineman.
And so if we didn't keep, you have two more that would potentially leave, or three more that would potentially leave. So we're half our workforce. It's crazy.
I have a question, I'm confused, when you said 1.6, Carl, what were you referring to?
So in the 1.6% of our budgeted expenses for that department, if we would go with that $10 increase with that total number there, it would add that $170,000, 318 cents and 65 cents. Just to figure on kind of scope and how that fits in with what our budget is. That would just add 1.6% to our budgeted expenses for that department.
For the electrical
For the
department?
electrical
Okay,
department.
all right.
So just as in comparison